Lawyers for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard wrapped up their closing arguments today. Now the case is with the jurors as we head into Memorial Day weekend. Joining me now to talk about what we have seen in the last few weeks is legal analyst Carlos Lastra. Thanks so much for being up late with us tonight, Carlos.
Thank you for having me, Sharon.
So, the jury deliberated for about 2 hours today after 6 weeks of testimony. How do you think the closing arguments went today?
I think the closing arguments went well. I think, frankly, in my opinion, Amber's side of the case did a little bit better. Rottenborn was terrific. He really tied the evidence to the jury instructions. And I was a little bit disappointed by Johnny Depp's side of the case, only because they had such a great case presentation and such terrific cross-examination of Amber Heard. So maybe I was expecting a little bit too much, but it was also very, very good.
So
now the case is with the jury, and well, we're going to see what they decide ultimately.
Right, and I think one of the big questions is how long is this going to take? What is this going to come down to? Because this is a civil case, right, about defamation. Yes. So they have to prove who defamed who, if that even happened.
Exactly right. And if you were watching, what you'll see is that the judge gave a jury instructions basically explaining what defamation means. And essentially, the proof needs to be by preponderance of the evidence, which means a slight tipping of the scale, and that false statements were made, that they were published. In the case of Johnny Depp's side, that they published it in the Daily Mail. In the side of Amber's side, it was the Washington Post op-ed. And if those statements were meant to defame a person, in other words, pursuant to Virginia law, they could, if proven, have the person charged with a crime of moral turpitude or affect their ability to run their profession or trade, then that would satisfy it. Of course, because these are public figures, there's a higher standard that must be proven by clear and convincing evidence, which is actual malice, which means they knew the statements were false, or they did it with a reckless disregard for the truth. And it sounds very technical, very complicated, but that's what the jury is going to have to work through, right, this mountain of evidence and apply those instructions.
And these accusations are obviously very serious. Johnny Depp is saying that he has not touched, Amber Heard in a physical, abusive way. But how do you see this going? I mean, defamation is really hard to prove.
Absolutely, and that's why we don't see it. We don't see it very often. But the more I've watched this case, frankly, I think this is, and I think most people would agree, a very ugly divorce dressed up as a defamation case. And frankly, I think the takeaway for most people out there is how could this thing be avoided? And frankly, it was touched upon a little bit in the trial, which is a prenuptial agreement. And for example, on the prenuptial agreements I prepare in my practice, I include provisions that people can't go on social media, can't go on mainstream media to the extent they have access to it and badmouth the other person. And if they do so, there's going to be injunctive provisions to keep someone from continuing to do that. And frankly, that is what should have happened here. And if there was such a prenup, this case would have never seen the light of day, and it would have ended like what we saw in the case of Melinda and Bill Gates' divorce, and Mackenzie and Jeff Bezos, where they just made a public statement and elevated both their reputations, as opposed to doing what these parties did, which is basically air their dirty laundry. And we'll have to see how they survived that part of the case.
Right, and it's sad to see, because in the last 6 weeks, we've seen the ugliness of their marriage come out. Amber Heard says she's getting hate mail, a lot of negativity coming towards her, and Johnny Depp, of course, saying that he used this to at least speak his truth. Carlos Lastra, thank you so much for your legal expertise, and we'll be following the case closely.